Perfect World Episode 214. After Shi Hao arrived at the borderland city, he discovered that experts from the 9 heavens above, the immeasurable heaven, had joined the fray. Previously on. After Shi Hao and the witch escaped from Phoenix Mountain, they journeyed before finally reaching the most magnificent city deep within the Forbidden Zone. The witch cried out in joy. They had faced countless dangers, and it was truly difficult to reach this point. As they approached the city, Shi Hao felt a surge within him, and the drop of blood within his body awakened. It emanated a grand aura, as if it could pierce through the past, present, and future. The witch recognized the drop of blood. She and Shi Hao had dug it up from the myriad things soil. Now, the drop of blood reflected the splendor of all ages and heavens. It was as if a celestial warrior resonated with the imperial city. The next moment, Shi Hao and the witch were stunned. From the drop of blood, they seemed to witness a great battle in the immortal valley of Jiyuan. The war cries were deafening, and countless powerful beings clashed. The scene was even more shocking than anything they had seen reflected before. The witch said, "If we enter the city with this drop of blood and are discovered, it will most likely cause some kind of incident." Shi Hao calmed himself, and the drop of blood finally subsided. The vision also disappeared. Shi Hao guessed that the scene reflected by the drop of blood might be related to the borderland battlefield. Otherwise, where else could such a scene be found? The witch nodded in agreement. They continued deeper and finally saw the legendary imperial city with their own eyes. Shi Hao and the witch were dumbfounded. The structure was so immense that it was difficult to distinguish reality from illusion. It connected with the heavens and earth, soaring into the outer realm, occupying all the space on the ground. Around the city, stars revolved. It was as if they had traveled back to the beginning of time. They felt a sense of grandeur and magnificence. The bricks of the giant city were refined from stars, then assembled together, forming this majestic city. Shi Hao and the witch were mesmerized, their hearts filled with awe. Is this the city that suppresses the other side of the borderland? It was truly breathtaking. The witch murmured, "Could this also be the place where those supreme experts signed the primordial covenant?" Shi Hao snapped out of his daze. Many thoughts crossed his mind. He realized that this ancient city wasn't the frontline city of the borderland. Because Shi Hao had once traced the source of the ominous and the borderland city he saw reflected on the altar wasn't like this. That ancient city wasn't as magnificent and tall. There were only the 7 kings of drunken snow battling there, defending the ancient city, preventing beings from the other side from crossing over. Shi Hao probed gently and realized that this so-called imperial borderland city was even more mysterious than he imagined. There must be some hidden secrets within it. Perhaps people had long forgotten the true purpose of the imperial borderland city. Seeing Shi Hao's lost expression, the witch asked, "What are you thinking about?" Shi Hao replied, "I'm thinking that the future battles will be incredibly brutal. Judging by the fortifications of the city, the enemies on the other side must be terrifying. Otherwise, why would such a city be necessary?" They finally reached the foot of the city, like ants gazing up at a giant. They felt as if giants were standing on the city walls, looking down at them. Even the powerful witch couldn't withstand the inexplicable pressure and had to use the time pearl to protect herself. Shi Hao also stopped after walking a short distance because he sensed a powerful formation in this place. They also saw a stone tablet that stated only those who had signed the primordial covenant could enter. Anyone else who forced their way in would be annihilated. Shi Hao tried using his heavenly eye to scan the surroundings, but the city was silent. He couldn't sense any signs of life. It was like a city of the dead. A moment later, the witch called out in a seductive voice, "Is anyone there?" "We've arrived." Shi Hao couldn't help but tease her. "That voice is more suited for seducing me. We can have a private conversation." But this city is full of old men, including the old celestial of the natural race and the old diviner of the divination race. The witch was speechless and rolled her eyes. In the following moments, even after Shi Hao used his lion's roar several times, The city remained silent. He was puzzled. What were those experts who signed the primordial covenant doing inside? Thinking of this, the image of Yi Qingxian appeared in Shi Hao's mind. That woman was very mysterious. Shi Hao knew she had many secrets. She was also someone his age who could freely enter and exit the borderland city. The witch was getting impatient. They had struggled to get here, but now there was no one to receive them. What was going on? Shi Hao suggested they circle the city first. Perhaps they might find something new. Soon, they found a small city near the imperial city. Upon arriving at the small city, they finally saw many living beings. This place was bustling with houses everywhere, no longer a primitive and desolate land. Shi Hao also sensed the auras of the Stone Crown King and Zhixian. They were gathered in front of the largest city, meditating with their eyes closed. Especially the witch, upon seeing her nemesis, Wechan, gnashed her teeth and said, "How did he get ahead of me? I thought he would die on the way." Compared to the 100,000 who set off, the number of people who made it here was quite small. Clearly, most had perished along the way. Survival was largely a matter of luck. Just then, a blond man stared at Shi Hao and the witch and said, "These two don't look ordinary, but compared to the experts of the 9 heavens above, they're still far behind." Another man commented on the witch's appearance. "The newcomer is quite beautiful, a rare sight even in the 9 heavens above. A true beauty." Shi Hao ignored them. As long as they didn't provoke him, he wouldn't do anything. But if they crossed the line, he would suppress them. At the same time, the cultivators from the 3,000 provinces looked over. Shi Hao glanced coldly at Mingzhuan and the blond man. He hadn't seen him before. Behind the blond man were several unfathomable experts. Even Shi Hao couldn't help but stare intently. Then, the blond man flattered the witch, "Fair maiden, this way, please. My immeasurable heaven is a cultivation sanctuary within the 9 heavens, perfect for refining one's cultivation. I invite you to join us for a chat. The future Heavenly God Academy will likely be established there." The witch was always confident in her appearance. Wherever she went, she attracted attention. So she didn't refuse but calmly replied, "I admire the various cultivation methods of the 9 heavens. If I have the opportunity, I will definitely visit you all." Shi Hao glanced at the witch and said disdainfully, "Why is the gap between people so big? I'm also considered an expert, so why doesn't anyone invite me?" The witch chuckled and said, "Maybe it's a problem with your character." The immeasurable heaven expert sneered, "I heard you defeated Lin Tian and boasted about sweeping across the 9 heavens and 10 earths, suppressing all enemies. How would we dare to invite you rashly?" Shi Hao replied in surprise, "I did defeat Lin Tian, but I didn't boast like that." Another woman said, "Didn't you say you'd suppress everyone and take the ferry to warm your bed?" "Lanling told me herself. Don't deny it." Shi Hao immediately understood the source of the problem. He explained, "I only said that to lighten the mood. I didn't expect you to take it so seriously." The blond man sneered, "Some people are not to be trifled with. You don't have the right." Shi Hao's face darkened. Since they weren't being friendly, he wouldn't bother being polite. He said coldly, "Compared to you, you have no right to point fingers at me. Go cool off somewhere else." The blond man continued, "Are you this impetuous? Just arrived and already want to fight me?" Shi Hao retorted, "Who do you think you are? If you want to fight for no reason, bring it on. Otherwise, get lost." Everyone was shocked. He really had a temper. He didn't bother explaining anything and directly challenged them to a fight. The cultivators from the 3,000 provinces were also surprised. This was completely different from the Shi Hao they knew. The blond man couldn't tolerate this. He rose into the air and looked down at Shi Hao. "How dare you speak to me like that? Are you antagonizing all the geniuses of immeasurable heaven?" Shi Hao said firmly, "Can you represent immeasurable heaven? Can you represent everyone behind you? I have only one goal in entering the Heavenly God Academy, to improve my cultivation. If I don't suppress 1 or 2 people like you today, More will likely pop up trying to challenge me later. Since you're willing to be the first, I'll oblige you." Now everyone understood why Shi Hao was so aggressive and ready to fight. The people from immeasurable heaven were already hostile towards him. Even if Shi Hao humbled himself, it wouldn't have any effect. So, it was better to be dominant all the way. The blonde man also made his move, striking out a palm towards Shi Hao. But suddenly, an old voice from the city boomed, "Insolence! How dare you duel before the ancient city?" Although this wasn't the imperial city, within the small city, there were naturally powerful natives residing. Hearing this, the blonde man forcibly retracted his palm. The old man was a venerable figure, but he had already formed a hand seal, so he could only redirect it towards the sky. Everyone was astonished. This man was incredibly powerful. A casual strike could shatter the void. However, Shi Hao was unfazed. A large hand appeared, and with a gentle swipe, the void healed instantly. Peace returned to the area. Shi Hao's technique shocked everyone present. This kind of restorative power was even more difficult than destructive power. It showed how powerful he truly was. The old man walked out of the city gate and said, "Friends from the 3,000 provinces and immeasurable heaven, please calm down. We are not here to fight. This old one has been ordered to count the number of people who have arrived. Please coexist peacefully." Hearing the old man's words, everyone agreed. After all, they were all going to enter the Heavenly God Academy. Offending such a person wouldn't end well for them. Shi Hao withdrew his killing intent. A moment later, a woman from immeasurable heaven greeted the witch. "Sister, you are so beautiful. You must be from the Jietian sect. Please come over and chat. Long ago, your sect had a close relationship with my immeasurable heaven." Besides her, several other young experts also smiled warmly at the witch. Clearly, they wanted to win her over and isolate Shi Hao. Since they had arrived together, Zhixian opened his heavenly eye and said to the witch, "You must have received that inheritance. You could be considered my junior sister. Come here." These words shocked the cultivators from the 3,000 provinces. Zhixian was on par with the 10 Crown King and Huang. His origins were mysterious. Yet this terrifying expert who had killed hundreds of thousands of beings mentioned an inherited lineage. Of course, everyone knew that Zhixian wasn't referring to the Jietian sect's inheritance. Yuechan's face showed a look of surprise. The witch had another inheritance, but she had never used it before. Undoubtedly, this would cause him great trouble. The witch looked at Zhixian and whispered, "So it was you." Then she gracefully walked over and stood beside Zhixian. Shi Hao secretly transmitted a message to the witch. "Could this be the man you mentioned back in the lower realms?" The witch rolled her eyes and said, "Mind your own business." Back in the lower realms, Shi Hao had jokingly asked the witch to follow him. The witch had scorned him and told him that her heart already belonged to someone else. A divinely powerful man was waiting for her. And that man was Zhixian. Now Shi Hao felt a bit alone. He looked towards the city gate and saw a familiar face. It was the sky demon Guqian. Shi Hao greeted him with a smile. "Hello, brother who stumbled upon good fortune." Guqian was furious. He had been avoiding Shi Hao, but he was still discovered. Meanwhile, Chang Gong, the dragon girl, and Chao Yuxing also arrived. These were all Shi Hao's friends. His awkward situation was immediately resolved. Soon, as more cultivators from the 3,000 provinces gradually arrived, a middle-aged supreme being appeared in the void. He announced that almost everyone had arrived, and it was time to determine who would enter the Heavenly God Academy. This supreme being was one of the 3 middle-aged men Shi Hao had seen before. He was also the main person in charge of this test. Suddenly, someone asked, "Senior, isn't this selection for cultivators from our 3,000 provinces? Why are there people from immeasurable heaven and even other ancient realms here?" Clearly, many had seen the blonde man's strength. If people from immeasurable heaven participated, they would take away spots from the 3,000 provinces. The middle-aged supreme being explained, These people missed their own selection trials in their ancient realms. Some were in seclusion, others were in ancient ruins. Therefore, they are being given another chance. But cultivators from the 3,000 provinces can rest assured. As long as you pass the test, everyone can enter the Heavenly God Academy. There will be no limit on the number of people. Hearing this, the cultivators from the 3,000 provinces were finally relieved. Please give us a like and subscribe, fellow Taoists. Let's continue our chat in the next episode.